Welcome to the Ranger Report, everyone. I'm Ruby Ranger, gaming dad and journalist. Today we're going to deviate from the established norm around here just a little bit, but first, for the younger crowd, let's have a bit of a history lesson. June 12th, 1981. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas dropped a bombshell of a blockbuster onto Hollywood and cinemas in general with the release of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Highly touted by media as coming from the minds behind Jaws and Star Wars, Raiders introduced the world to the adventures of Indiana Jones, archaeology professor by day, treasure hunter by, well, the rest of the time. Raiders was a massive success and birthed a franchise, spawning 3 sequels with a 5th currently in development. Now, part of the success of the franchise came in the form of merchandise and video games. Indiana Jones starred in arguably one of the greatest PC games of all time, a point-and-click adventure titled Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, released in 1992 by LucasArts, directed and designed by Hal Barwood, with music by Clint Pajakian, featuring the voice talents of Doug Lee as Indy.
All right, Jones, how you gonna find that statue and all this junk?
Numerous attempts for a follow-up game started and stalled, and it wouldn't be until 1999 when LucasArts released a true sequel, again designed and directed by Hal Barwood, titled Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, the first 3D Jones adventure. Riffing off of the success of Tomb Raider, which itself riffed off of the success of Indiana Jones, Infernal Machine was met with mostly positive reviews, despite some negative feedback about the controls and the slow pacing. Now, interestingly enough, Infernal Machine mirrors plot points that would appear almost a decade later in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. You got an older Indy, interdimensional aliens, communist Russian bad guys, a psychic femme character, and science fiction elements alongside classic tomb raiding. In fact, Hal Barwood wanted to use UFOs as a part of the original plot for the game, but George Lucas vetoed this because he was still determined to use UFOs for the 4th Indy flick. And funnily enough, when you look at the two of these plots side by side and compare them, Infernal Machine does exactly what Crystal Skull did, only objectively better.
Ouch.
Look, when I decided to make this channel, I wanted to devote it to first-person games, a genre I've loved since Wolfenstein. But if there's any franchise out there that I love more than Doom or Quake, it's definitely Indiana Jones. And with the 40th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark right around the corner, I knew I needed to bring it up here somehow. And considering that there aren't any first-person adventure games out there, I mean, there aren't any good first-person adventure games. Ooh, I'll get to you later. I decided to play through my personal favorite Indiana Jones game, Infernal Machine. Now, objectively, Fate of Atlantis is a better game overall, but I have a deep sense of nostalgia for this one. I first played the demo for it off of a PC Gamer disc back in 1998. I religiously played through it on both N64 and PC. The N64 version was a Blockbuster exclusive, if you can believe that. And up until recently, this is an absolute bitch to try and run on modern systems. The game's engine simply did not like any operating system past Windows 98, so the game developed a bit of a cult following as fans built homemade installation guides and launchers to keep it playable. Now, this all changed in 2018 when Infernal Machine saw a new release via GOG.com that worked beautifully on modern operating systems, with higher resolution and controller support, and this is the version that I am playing today. Now, I'm also deviating from the normal report format in that this game is so big, I'm going to have to split this review into 2 parts. I wanted to do a standard issue review, collect footage, write a script, whittle it down into a half-hour video, but this game is honestly so massive that I felt a need to go through it a little deeper and a little more detailed. Plus, there's the fact that all my footage up to this point is 7 hours long and close to 150 gigs of space, so that added to the decision. Anyway, without any further ado, let's take a look at Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. The opening cutscene is an excellent example of concise writing. Set in 1947, quickly catching up fans on what's been happening with Jones's world since we last saw him in Fate of Atlantis, a game that took place in 1939 and was stuffed full of Nazi enemies. Now we see that World War II is over, the Nazis are out, the Russians are in, and Dr. Jones is deep in Utah doing a teacherly dig. That loading screen is so cool. First of all, those graphics. Can we talk about how utterly beautiful this game is? I'll bring it up more than once throughout the review, but sweet Jesus, the sprite work, the textures in this game, they're unbelievable. At least they are from afar, but once you get up close to some of them, they get a little blurry and messy. And yes, the polygon work on the human characters is certainly low count, even for games at the time, but for the most part, for the wide open spaces, the lighting and detail work, and the animations, this game is stunningly pretty. Canyonlands is the first level and introduces us to all the mechanics we'll be using for the rest of the game. Running, jumping, rolling, climbing, whipping objects to climb, whipping objects to swing, finding treasure, swimming. Pretty standard issue adventuring stuff, helped along by pressing the number 0 key on the keypad to go first person and look around. Whenever Jones has a weapon out, if there's something important to shoot at, he'll automatically turn towards it. If there's something he can whip, he'll do the same thing if his whip is out. Except sometimes finding the exact right place to stand can be a little tricky. And all of this is made just a touch trickier by the fact that we are using tank controls.
What makes you cheer?
Look, I get it. Tank controls are archaic and not the most dynamic to work with, but hear me out. Maybe because I'm an old school gamer and I've spent a lot of time with survival horror games or games with fixed camera angles, but I don't mind tank controls. Pressing forward to run and arrows to steer is easy, gentle on first-timers, and fits the adventure aesthetic established here. If anything, the biggest problem that I have with the controls is that Indy just moves really slowly, especially when climbing or shimmying or pushing or pulling. There's a very clear delay as Jones gets into place to push or pull something, or when he situates himself onto a ladder to start climbing. Add into the fact that whenever you push or pull something, you then have to repeat the action if you need to pull something further, and that everything is grid-based, so you are forced into moving a certain distance before you can stop. Sometimes a lot of the environmental or climbing puzzles become incredibly tedious, but we'll get to more of those later. Once Jones gets through the lion's share of the level, we get some more insight into where he is now.
Funny how I didn't spot this before. If this is the prize, I'll lose my grant for sure. Where are the priceless artifacts? The gilded idols? The crowns of kings? Good news never travels that fast. Better get up there.
A little more climbing and jumping later, Jones is reunited with his former flame, Sophia Hapgood, who was his partner back in Fate of Atlantis.
Sophia Hapgood?
Hello, Indy. Been a while.
I'll say. What brings you out west? Some psychic premonition about the treasures I should have found?
My, look at these wonderful potsherds.
It's the new thinking in archaeology. Find some worthless debris, analyze it, understand prehistory. Kind of noble, don't you think?
There's an iron curtain coming down on Europe, Indy. The Russians are taking over.
I read the papers.
Want a real chance to be noble? We need your help.
Uh-huh. Who's we?
When I joined during the war, it was the OSS. Now President Truman calls us the Central Intelligence Agency.
Is that what you're up to these days? Soviet sabotage? Atomic secrets?
Don't be silly. We've got whole battalions for that. It's my job to worry about more, unusual activity, such as this dig site on the Euphrates River south of Baghdad.
Babylon.
Remember your Bible? That's where mortals raised the Tower of Babel to invade heaven.
Well, you know, this does look like the ruins of Etemenanke, the ziggurat often identified with the tower.
Very good, Dr. Jones. You're looking at the brainchild of one Gennady Volodnikov of the Leningrad Physics Institute. He thinks there's some truth to the biblical legend.
Isn't he a godless communist?
He's a physicist who studies manifolds and hyperspace. Quirky theoretical stuff.
Now, what's a guy like that doing in Babylon?
Not sure. All we really know is he thinks the atom bomb is a joke.
Then why isn't the world laughing?
Indy, suppose the tower housed some deadly force no one else had ever heard of. Something as dangerous as nuclear fission.
And the Babylonians tore it down for reasons not discussed in the good book.
Exactly.
It's an amusing theory, but as you can see, I've got troubles of my own.
You don't think I flew out here from Washington just to relieve your boredom, I hope? This came from the Russian dig site.
Somebody made a mistake. This looks like part of a steam engine. Maybe a locomotive from the last century.
There's no mistake. We've dated the thing. It's 2,600 years old.
Really? Look at that little wheel spin. How'd you find it?
Come on, Indy, we're the CIA. We have spies.
And we're off. And so we've got the Tower of Babel, communist Russian bad guys, and ancient machines. Sounds like a stroll in the park for the good doctor. Arriving in the Russian dig site in Babylon, the game starts to put the player through their paces. First, we get some insight into Volodnikov's perspective.
I hereby reminds Comrade Dr. Volodnikov that socialist theory disavows the existence of supernatural powers.
Those doctrinaire apparatchiki. What is it? They think I'm out here searching for God?
Possibly. I'm just decoding the message, sir.
I'm searching for Marduk, a creature the Babylonians worship as a god, but he doesn't live in heaven, just on another plane.
What kind of plane, sir? Soviet or American?
Not airplane, you idiot. It's another dimension of reality. The Ethereum.
Be careful, Professor. When questions of ideology arise, they often conceal doubts about methods and results.
In Foreign Ministerstva, we're making excellent progress, all according to plan. We know the true story is waiting in the room of the tablets. That's where we'll find out what happened to the tower and to the machine Marduk inspired. We're close. It's a matter of days. And damn the ideology!
Then we're off to some shimmying and climbing through the dig site before we come to our first gunfight. It is not good.
Hey, ты! Эй, ты!
Alright, so here's where the tank controls actually hamper the gameplay. Either the control scheme isn't well designed for fight sequences, or the fight sequences aren't well designed for the control scheme. Firstly, all the bullets fired are rendered as projectiles, so there's no hit scanning. While it's great for us getting shot at, it's not so great shooting at enemies, especially when some aspects of the environment have invisible outer layers that the bullets collide with. Also, since Indy moves so sluggishly, getting into position to fire can be a hassle, so a lot of time you'll be soaking up damage just trying to get into the right place. My tried and true tactic for all gunfights is to just keep running, shift key pressed at all times, charging forward, guns blazing. Doesn't always work.
Ты, иди сюда!
Plus, if you turn too quickly, Jones will immediately lose his target lock on whatever you're trying to shoot at. Overall, gunplay is almost the weakest aspect of the gameplay experience. Almost. We'll talk about number one when we get to it. Anyways, after some navigating and hitching a ride on top of a Russian truck to get deeper into the dig, followed by more gunplay, Indy gets cornered by a guard.
Ты! Остановись! Здравствуйте, товарищ. Open the door. I'm here to deliver supplies, you know, dig stuff. Whatever you need, I've got it.
Ты шпион? Мне прекрасно стрелять шпионов.
What?
Hello, Dr. Jones. Welcome to Babel. I'm Simon Turner. Remember? CIA? Sophia works for me.
Oh, you stole the cogwheel.
And our commie friends don't even know it's gone. Volodnikov's a hopeless academic, not a field man, and frankly, I need clues he doesn't have. That's why you got tapped. You're a famous archaeologist. I'm just a spy. This should get you through the door. By the way, rumor has it they found a gold statuette of the winged god Marduk. Be awful nice to have that.
CIA runs a museum.
The company runs a hive of soulless bureaucrats, but I am a passionate collector.
I'll bet you are.
We'll be seeing more of some... Oh my god, no, I'm not ready for you. You go... Well, I guess that worked. We'll be seeing more of Simon Turner later in the game. He, being Sophia's CIA boss, makes him important, even if he only appears sporadically. Really want to note at this point in time that this is a game to be played with headphones on. Where the previous game, Fate of Atlantis, had a full soundtrack composed by Clint Bajakian, here Bajakian provides musical cues for moments of triumph, danger, awe, and mystery. But between the brief cues, the game is mostly silent, save for some incredible ambient sound work. Quiet and echoey when underground, or dotted with animal noises all around when outdoors. Sometimes there's the distant sound of fieldwork or running water. Combined with the scope of the level design, it envelops the player into the experience of being somewhere else entirely, dropped into the middle of ancient ruins and left to explore. As far as the game's biggest accomplishments go, this might be at the top of the list. Moving on, we get to an environmental puzzle, which is the first of what the game mostly has to offer. A series of climbing, jumping, and figuring out the right order in which to navigate a large room, pressing buttons to open up doors or to manipulate objects. While this is just the introductory puzzle, it's still a bit tricky, which is another thing this game does well. It puts the pieces in front of you and makes you think about how to put them together. Once Indy gathers the necessary items, we head back to the ancient elevator to get more story.
Ah, Jones, there you are. Got a statue for me?
Will this do?
It just might. Anything else?
According to the inscription, the tower once housed a great engine. When the Babylonians smashed the thing, 4 priests escaped with the parts.
Taking them where?
Not sure, except in one case. Some fellow named Ergon headed for the Heavenly Mountains. There's a crude map of Central Asia.
That's not much help.
Might be enough. The Tianshan Range straddles the border between China and Kazakhstan. The name translates as Heavenly Mountains.
Kazakhstan? Last time I looked, that was Soviet territory.
Maybe I won't show the border guards my passport.
Okay, buddy, it's your funeral.
Then we're off to the next area of our adventure, the... okay. Here's where things start to get gimmicky. The level starts out well enough. Indy sneaks into a Russian border outpost, takes out the guards, and then finds an inflatable raft, which we now need to use to navigate the river and head downstream towards our goal. Using the raft is tricky at best. When the sluggish controls combine with fighting against the rough current, trying to maintain any sort of direction borders between tedious and straight up awful. But that's not all. While paddling down the river, there are sharp rocks along the way, and if you hit one, you start to lose air in your raft, which you can fix with a raft repair kit, but you can only carry 3 of those at a time, and there are a lot of rocks. So I like to ride out the air loss as long as possible until I absolutely need to use a repair kit. Alright, so here's how the stage works. Indy finds a mechanism designed to hold 4 candles and a bridge, which he needs to activate to get to the next area. From here, it's kind of a hub, where Indy takes the raft and follows the river down 3 possible routes, each route containing access to 1 or more of the candles we need for the puzzle. Eventually, the river runs down to an underground well, where an elevator awaits to take Indy back up top, where we can get in the water again to try and hit one of the other routes. Sounds easy enough, right? It's really not. A couple of the routes are easy if you just let the current take you, but that means the other 2 routes require careful planning and paddling. Miss your turn or let your diligence down just a little bit and you can unfortunately drift off the wrong way and you'll be forced down to the well to take the elevator back up just to try again. There is a neat little environmental puzzle involving a machine driven by the current of the river. I really like the design and the aesthetic feel of this, so Tianshan River isn't a total frustration. There's some neat sights to see. Gather the candles, light them, and Indy's pathway opens to the Shambhala Sanctuary. The Sanctuary is one of my favorite places in the game, probably because I think I got so lost here in my younger days that I literally spent days wandering through it trying to figure it out, but also for some really large open areas that require impossible jumps to get through, and the sense of mystery and danger is everywhere. It's just a fantastic, chef's kiss. This is just a fantastic level. Opening things up is a trip to the lower portion of the Sanctuary, where we get our first taste of supernatural tomfoolery.
Now, what in the name of biology was that?
Yeah, these are ice creatures, and they are a pain in the ass. They move fast, hide around corners, shoot very damaging ice shards at Indy, and if you're too close to one when you kill it, it explodes with area of effect damage. Fucking wonderful. I do like that we start to see some honest-to-God booby traps in this level. They begin to appear more frequently throughout the game, but there's the swinging hammer trap and the treasure trap where to get the gold you need to use your whip to knock it towards you. I think that's also the only time in the game where the whip works that way. You can technically use it to knock weapons out of the soldiers' hands, but good luck getting them to stand still. Anyways, after starting up the Sanctuary's clock using the river power, there's a puzzle where you have to get a large bell into position and then find a way to activate a mechanical bell ringer, who is set to a timer on the aforementioned clock. This involves pulling switches and then timing it so you have enough time to run, jump, whip, climb, and then run across back to the bell to pull a final switch and get the bell rung. It sounds more complicated than it is, but the controls are really your worst enemy here. You make one wrong step because you stood in the wrong place, and having enough time suddenly turns into not enough time. Make sure you check the hands on the clock to set it up so you have one full rotation and then enough time to run and do everything that you need to do. Ring the bell and out pops a mystical old woman who, let her explain.
But it is you who must help me. As you have guessed, a man from the desert came to us long ago with the spinning idol. For centuries we have lived with his evil legacy. Take it, and our blessing be upon you.
Show me the way.
I am too old and infirm. To be of any service, I must recover my former strength. And that, I am afraid, requires a certain golden treasure.
Okay, golden treasure. Where is it?
Why, in the treasury, of course. Take this. It may help you.
I have a mighty need to point out that she has the same Boris and Natasha accent as Kate Blanchett in Crystal Skull.
Where is it you would imagine I am from? Dr. Jones.
Now we need to backtrack through the sanctuary. Russians pop up.
Mais тебя, окружили!
Commies again. I'm beginning to hate those guys.
And there's another wide open room with precarious perches to leap and dangle from, all to get to a flower pot that needs some sunlight. Now, on the way to get the bulb in the sun, there's this brutally stupid sequence in which you need to shimmy outside the building to get to the next room, but while you're shimmying, there's a Russian soldier who you can't take out from the previous room that takes pot shots at you. If your health is too low going out there, or if you forgot to shoot out the window that you need to climb up through, you are really, truly screwed here. Bad LucasArts. Bad LucasArts. Once the plant is flowered, we take it back to the old woman who transforms into a super strong younger woman?
Your gift is great. Now, here is the way to the Babylonian curse. Return when you have cleansed the sanctuary. Beware the ice.
The next area is... oh shit, this guy. Big Daddy Ice Monster is one of the 4 boss fights that the game has to offer, each one protecting a piece of the Infernal Machine. You can't directly attack the Ice Beast, but he can attack you, and the surrounding huts in the area have no ceilings, so he can climb the walls and shoot at you from above. Best bet here is to keep moving, climbing, and find your way to Ergon's part, which causes the earth to tremble. TLDR, it causes things to quake and shatter. So use it 3 times on the Ice Beast and voila! Boss fight secured. As the game progresses, we'll be using this part of the Infernal Machine wherever there are sections of walls that are very clearly cracked and broken, and using the part will break them down in order to gain access to new areas.
Success.
Indy returns to the old her, who directs him to find an island in the South Pacific, and then she literally opens up a portal to said island. Just somehow a door that leads to an island in the Philippines, from the Chinese mountains. Instantaneously. And then the woman vanishes in a burst of light. I am willing to accept a lot of bullshit when it comes to Indiana Jones. This is one of those where I'm just like, time for a little bit of bullshit. It's about here where the game starts to show its hand. Where you'd be forgiven for thinking this is an action-adventure game, what with the rolling, jumping, and shooting, this is actually a 3D point-and-click adventure game. No joke. No lie. I swear to shit. This is a 3D point-and-click adventure game. In the 90s, LucasArts was arguably the king of point-and-click games with their nonsense logic puzzles and deep storytelling, so it kind of makes sense that their first 3D action game would carry over elements of that. Cool. Okay, here's the fun. First, you have to immediately turn around from where Indy was walking from to go find the machete so you can cut through dangling vines and heavy spider webs. Then you have to find the entrenching tool. Then you have to swim around to the other side of the lagoon, find the Japanese ship and the torpedo on the beach, getting arming device from the ship, use the arming device on the torpedo to blow a hole in the ship, and swim through the hole in the ship, grab the hammer, find a key submerged in the hold. During the swimming part, you have to get through the dive on 1 meter of air. There's no way to surface midway through, which means you'll probably not have enough air to get all the way back, so then you'll start draining your health meter, and then you'll need to use a health pack at least once underwater before you can surface again. Now use the key to unlock the main cabin, grab the crank, use the crank on the crane so you can use the whip on the crane so you can use the entrenching tool on the mound of dirt between totems to open up an underwater door, use the hammer on the submerged fighter plane so you can rip off one of the propeller blades, use a propeller blade to wedge open the sealed doors to swim through the ruins, pull a switch, open another door, and swim upwards to victory. Meanwhile, this entire time you are doing so, you are swimming through shark and piranha infested waters. which constantly nip and bite at you, and you can kill them with the machete underwater, but it takes so long they continuously bite you while you're doing it, so you might as well just swim as fast as you can and just take the damage as it comes. If you've been finding the hidden treasures this whole time, as I have, you'll have enough money between levels to restock on health supplies and keep yourself afloat, but holy shit, this level is a lot of bullshit, and it's huge! There is so much space you have to cross, and then cross again, and then swim through, all while either taking damage or spinning in place trying to solve the nonsense puzzles. The submerged swim has baffled me for literally years. I hate it. There's no way to swim it in one breath, and it hurts me. Whew. Let's get to the volcano. I have a deep soft spot for this area, as this was used for the demo of the game back in 1998, so coming back here each time is a nostalgia trip. On top of that, Palawan Volcano is an absolutely massive level. One of Infernal Machine's best aspects is how big some of the levels are, all preloaded, all existing at the same time. I mean, we go from inner flooded sanctum to outside a volcano to a giant environmental puzzle across lava to meeting up with Sophia to Sophia immediately getting kidnapped to running around dealing with commies to figuring out where Sophia is, unlocking her cell, going back to a swinging puzzle we couldn't solve without her, and then we move into the next area, the lava-filled Palawan Temple, which is yet another huge map. Crossing perilous rising and falling platforms, Indy has to find a key to open a pair of massive doors, while introducing us to the next supernatural creature on our travels, the rock monsters. These guys are worse than the ice monsters.
Ah, rocks move. I don't remember studying this in geology class.
So, in order to kill them, you have to get up close and personal with the earthquake part. Zap them twice and they'll shudder and explode. Couple problems with this. Whenever you use a part from the Infernal Machine, it uses up purple energy. Now, if you've read the manual, you know this is called Ethereum energy, but if you're just going by in-game information, we don't actually know what that means until much later. So, using up purple energy is fine. The earthquake part uses up almost a full meter, and it recharges naturally. Use too much, however, and instead of simply emptying out the purple meter, it drains your health to use, which is also fine. It just means that you can't magic missile your way out of these kinds of situations. So you have to get in, use the earthquake pit, back out, wait a minute, then get back in and use it again. But if you're too close when you use it the first time, the rock monster will smack you really hard for a bunch of damage. And if you're too close when you use the part the second time, and you have to be super close so you're always just too close, then the rock monster's death explosion will damage you with another area of effect attack. Long story short, these guys are not worth your time and should just be avoided. They move so slow you can run past them easily. I thought somehow one time that I shot one to death after zapping it once with an earthquake, but I think I was just seeing things because no matter how much I shot one up after that, nothing happened. But, and again, I cannot stress enough how huge these levels are. When Indy finally emerges from the sunken temple, he comes out into a valley connected by multiple broken down bridges. Like, this is all still part of the same level. Look at this. Everything you see there is accessible. And this is after meandering through a huge volcano lava area with multiple passageways. The size and scope of this game is genuinely awe-inspiring. Part of what I love on display here is just how much this game, despite the strange logic and the sluggishness, makes you feel like you're truly on this adventure, wandering through places other human beings haven't touched in hundreds of years. But even more so, this bridge area acts as a hub for the next series of puzzles, which involve swimming downstream, climbing up through a booby-trapped area, those bamboo spike traps are nothing to sneeze at, to come around to where one of the bridges is dangling and just needs a bit of a chop from the machete. Of course, I didn't realize this until I came all the way back around to where I started, meaning more backtracking, because chances are you're not going to notice this immediately unless you already know what to do. But then you use the bridge as a ladder to climb down to a hidden cave and then... just watch this.
Aha! I think it's a key.
shit. Yes, that is what I am talking about. Setting off a booby trap and then barely escaping as the whole thing collapses? Fuck yes. Using the key, Indy gains access to yet another logic puzzle, this time involving hitting a series of switches in the right order to get a second key. And using both red and green tiki keys opens up the area to the deepest part of the volcano. Now, on one hand, I have to stress that this is still the same fucking level, and that the atmosphere is per fucking fection. Look at this. The torches light up on his approach. The colored lighting and the atmosphere effects. This is prime Indiana Jones content right here. This is practically Spielbergian in content. And then we meet our second boss, the Lava Beast.
Lava with a personality. What's this guy's body temperature? Myself, when I run a fever, I get cranky.
He's mostly harmless unless you try to cross the stone bridge that he hovers over ominously. If you do, he'll wallop you with super hot fists. But we're going to avoid that and head over in the other direction where the next part of the Infernal Machine is, the invisibility part.
Is this what I think it is? Let's see. Frame your mind well, wherefore eyes avail not. The unseen is unstoppable. Here it is, another cog in the wheel.
Using it means the Lava Beast can't see you, allowing you to run across the stone bridge to the outside, where a switch floods the volcano and the Lava Beast is no more. Outside we go to... Oh no, it's fucking Jeep Trek. Jeep Trek is... fine. It's another gimmicky level. By this time in the Tomb Raider franchise, Lara Croft was driving things around in her games, so I think LucasArts felt Indy needed to also, except the Jeep is difficult to maneuver using tank controls. Arrow keys to steer, shift key makes Jeeps go brrr, you get the deal. But if you make a mistake and hit a wall, going in reverse takes forever, which you can sort of work around by accelerating and then turning while pressing down arrow for a sort of handbrake turn. But the whole level is driving. Driving, followed by getting out of the Jeep for a minute to grab something on the road. Followed by more driving while holding the shift key to go up sharp embankments, followed by a long segment where there's a Russian truck roaming around with a bunch of soldiers in the back shooting at you while you try to decipher this hub area, which has branching roads that end in walls so that if you drive over them, you can't backtrack, and then all the roads lead back and around to the hub, so you can keep trying to figure out which paths to take at the end of the level. This is the only level in the game where I bust out the auto map to figure out where I need to go, because while there are some cool things and treasures to find here, Jeep Trek is possibly the most aggravating level in the game due to the fucking Jeep controls. The only saving grace to the Jeep is the little horn honk that happens when you run someone over. One dramatic escape later, and Indy is on his way to Teotihuacan, specifically the Pyramid of the Sun, which always makes me think of the song People of the Sun, so Rage Against the Machine plays in my head constantly during this part. Seriously though, I'm a nerd for Mesoamerican history, so diving through this trap-laden, multi-tiered, Aztec-inspired pyramid is solid gold. It doesn't hurt that it's designed incredibly well and is another fantastic example of the audio work in the game. Also, I love lighting all the torches in the temple for no reason other than it makes me happy. Teotihuacan is so impressive you'd be forgiven for thinking the designers were just flexing here. Highly detailed, flooded with atmosphere and foreboding, the sense of abandonment and mysterious danger seeps out of every corner. Whenever I think of ancient ruins and temples filled with traps, this is honestly the imagery that comes to mind. The conceit of this one is that there's a large door-opening puzzle that opens to multiple chambers, which when all visited and relieved of their idols, then let you place all said idols into slots to lift a statue into place to open a secret exit out of the temple. The fact that the Soviets show up, this time specifically the Spetsnaz, doesn't even hamper things. This is just a cool, huge climbing level exploring an ancient temple. Chalk up a win for the LucasArts crew. Olmec Valley has its ups and downs. To begin with, look at the size of this place.
Where am I? Unmapped territory for sure. But I'll bet Azerum found it long before I did.
And yeah, it's just wide open. Indy will let you know if you've run too far past an objective point, which is helpful because you really can go past it if you don't know what you're looking for, which are pressure plates that create bridges across the valley for you to cross. This means, you guessed it, a lot of backtracking as we climb up one area, get a large stone head out, drop it down below, push into place, and then climb back up to cross the bridge, rinse and repeat. Getting the stone heads into position is a fun bit in and of itself, as each one has a trap that you have to watch out for, and if you're not careful, you'll be reenacting the opening to Raiders of the Lost Ark the hard way.
It's a monumental Olmec head. So that's who lived here in Azram's day.
A highlight here, or a frustration if you're still fighting the controls, is a timer puzzle, where a door opens up high above an area you need to access, but it only stays open so long, so you run and jump and climb to get up to reach it. If it's your first time, it'll take a couple passes to figure out the optimal climbing path that won't slow you down too much. This isn't my first time, and I still had issues getting it down. But at long last, Olmec Valley culminates in a large pyramid above ground, which requires a lot of climbing stairs to get up. And then we're on to the third boss, Feathered Serpent. Now at first everything seems okay, no traps, nothing wrong, just a big open space with 2 doors on either side. You need to light the torches flanking each door to get them to open. Open the wrong one first, and out pops the Feathered Serpent, a giant snake with bladed scales that will absolutely shred you to pieces if you get too close. And it also spits out smaller snakes at you if you're too far away from it. Use the invisibility piece so it'll stop following you. Run and light the torches by the other door to gain access to our third piece of the Infernal Machine, the hoverpiece. I like this one a lot. It drains energy the way the invisible piece does, and what you do is stand beneath blue nether crystals, and activating the piece creates a column of anti-gravity, allowing Indy to float up high to otherwise inaccessible ledges. What we want to do here is float up to a walkway on either side of the arena, cross to either corner, and then step on a platform which, when it lowers, causes a massive spike to shoot up out of the floor. Doing this at the right time will skewer the Feathered Serpent, and timing that correctly will spear the thing right through the damn head, causing it to literally fucking explode into multiple baby snakes. The ceiling opens up for Indy to hover upwards to escape, and immediately walks into a trap and is captured by the Russians. I'm pretty sure he falls into someone's trap and gets captured by the bad guys in literally every adventure he goes on. I think that might be a trope at this point. But it's here where we leave the good professor for now, as this review, bloated as it is already, would only become more bloated should we continue onwards any further. And where better a place to end than a cliffhanger? Will the man in the hat escape from certain danger? Will he find ways to utilize the pieces of the Infernal Machine he's collected thus far in creative manners to stymie his foes? And will Dr. Jones discover that the forces behind the Infernal Machine are more than what they seem? You can probably figure out the answers to that. Tune in next time for Indiana Jones in the Infernal Machine Part 2, How to Build a Better Alien. I'm Ruby Ranger, your gaming dad, and this has been the Ranger Report. We'll see you next time.